Um, all right. Hi everyone. My name is Nicolas, and I'm a PhD student in Quebec City, Canada, at Laval University. And hopefully, I will finish my PhD soon enough in the next year. And today, I'm presenting a project that we've been working on lately, which is Plumitifs. And as Gabriel told it, it's a French Plumitifs descriptions data to text dataset for natural language generation. So I'll begin by introducing the team behind this project. So there's myself, and I work closely with Eve Gaumont, who is a master's student in Faculty of Law, as well as Luc Lamontagne, my supervisor, and Pierre-Luc Desiel, who is the supervisor of Eve Gaumont in the Faculty of Law. So I'll begin by introducing the underlying task that we are trying to solve with this new data set that we are introducing today. So in 2020 at INLG, the International Conference on Natural Language Generation, we introduced the task of generating intelligible plumitifs. And by plumitif, these are like, I would say, docket files, similar to docket files. We want to generate intelligible plumitif descriptions. And in this paper, we first introduce the task and the first baseline model, as I will introduce shortly. So just to give you a sense of what we're trying to do, we have on the left here the first page of a docket file, a Plumitif, which contains different information about the accusation, and this is a fake case, obviously. So we have the accused. We also have a couple of charges, references to the Criminal Code of Canada, as well as the pleas. Sometimes we have a sentence, the decision, and so on. So these documents are kind of cryptic, and they contain several abbreviations, and they are supposed to be widely accessible to the Canadian citizens, either to be in the context, in the educational context, or in some cases when citizens want to represent themselves, they are supposed to be to have access to this kind of document. However, there is a problem in an intelligibility problem with this document, being that well, as I said, it contains a lot of references to the criminal code and a lot of abbreviations. So the goal of this project is to take into input this document and generate a short description, or well, translate this document into a more digestible piece of text, essentially. So this is why we frame this problem into a data to text. We extract the meaningful information from the docket file and generate some description out of it. So the first baseline model that we introduce is based on a rule-based generator. So we first scan through the docket file, extract the different parts, and normalize, extract the structure from this denormalized document. And then giving some rules and the Criminal Code of Canada, we then generate a short summary of this, or short the description of this document. However, we had a couple of generalization problem with this model, because the rules have been extracted first by a legal expert, but from a subset of the docket file. So, and a rule-based language generator may be hard to maintain and even to build if you gotta have a sense of how the legal system works, what abbreviations are, and things like that. So we hopefully want to solve this problem or replace this rule-based generator by some deep learning sequence-to-sequence generators. And by hopefully, I mean, well, we are actually testing this. And this morning, I presented a model that we are actively working on, which is Criminal Bar. And it's a pre-trained language model that has been trained on thousands of judgments from the Criminal Court of Canada. So it grasped essentially some semantics from these legal documents. Um, but in order to train such a model, we need a data set to train this. And this is why we build this data set. So we wanted to create a data set with Plumitifs docket files and their associated descriptions in order to train such a statistical model. And this is why we introduce Plumitifs. So I'll present how we created this data set, and I'll first introduce the core judgments, as well as the annotation tool that we developed for this, and then the outcome, which is Plumitifs, and just a really simple example from the data set. So core judgments are, to some extent, a lengthy description of the Plumitifs. So we have several pages, and within these pages, we have, at some places, references to the accusations, the verdicts, the pleas, and the sentences. So we can create a mapping between the different sections of the Plumitif with, for example, the paragraphs within the associated judgments. So the idea is to create these association for every accusation. So in this work, we focus mainly on the accusations and the decisions and the pleas, but the annotation methodology and tool generalizes to any other parts of the Plumitif. So I'll introduce the annotation tool that we developed for the creation of this data set. So the annotator, which were basically me or Ev, add an interface where on the left side we have the set of charges that are within the Plumitif. And on the right side, we have every paragraphs or sections from the judgment, the document. And so what we did is that we didn't want to skim through the whole document since it may be hundreds of paragraphs.
Excuse me, Nicolas, just to alert you, we have 3 more minutes, okay?
Okay, perfect.
Oh.
I'll fast forward just a little. So we created classifiers in order to put at the top the relevant paragraphs and to easily associate sections from the Plumitif with the relevant paragraphs that we wanted to keep. And then the annotator just have to save it. And then there's another interface where we label to which part of the accusation, if it's the charge, if it's the plea, or the decision, for example, this paragraph is referring to. And again, here we are using a really simple text classifier to pre-annotate these sections. And then the annotator, if the pre-annotation was not correct, we then fix this annotation and then submit and save this. So these really simple textual classifiers accelerate the annotation process a lot, reducing to around 2 minutes per document. And originally, we were talking about 10 or 15 minutes, I think, per documents. And we essentially reduced the number of clicks and scrolling time for the creation of this data set. So one thing that I just want to quickly mention is that we are decontextualizing Plumitifs in the sense that we are removing any sensible information from this data set because we really we don't want any private information to leak from Plumitifs. So we first apply an automatic depersonalization using name entity recognition models by removing names, places, organizations, and dates. We then went through the thousands of examples manually to replace the names, places, and organizations that the NER model may have missed. And we also remove contextual information specific to the crime that has been perpetrated. For example, assault his neighbor, for example, we would remove this. We also remove anything that is related to gender and numbers and information describing the victims. Obviously, we would remove a woman, for example, in this piece of text. So this is a really simple example extracted from this data set. So we have 2 charges here from section 320.14(1)(a) from the criminal code and B. And we also have a verdict. And this is the associated piece of text, associated description of these sections of the primitives. So this is exactly how it is represented into the JSON file that we release. So we have around 2,400 pairs of charges containing also the verdict or the pleading associated with a textual description. So the data set is available here. And if you have any questions or any comments, feel free to reach out either during the question time and or on any social media. So just to finish off, we are still improving this data set by adding a little more examples. And now we are actively working on training a statistical generator on this data set. And I would like to thank everybody for listening, and I'm happy to take on the questions.
Okay, thank you, Nicolas. I actually enjoyed the presentation. I am curious for these future updates. I just like to ask you a question. What do you believe to be the biggest issues when facing the future proceedings for the future works?
Actually, what we developed an natural language generation evaluation metric, because in a legal case like this, you really don't want a statistical generator to generate unfactual piece of text. You really want it to be aligned with the original primitives. You don't, because these kind of models are known to hallucinate some things. So what we are developing is a evaluation metric. However, there are still some concerns because we don't want to generate some texts like that won't be factual. And so we always consider falling back to the rule-based model, which will be really factual and will reflect the original docket file. But I mean, this is research, and we want to push as far as we can this statistical generation. But this is the main concern that we have, actually.
Very well, very well. We are still waiting on questions, but yeah, we have not received new questions here. Well, if you want to use this moment to maybe comment on something, or use it a final time to do some last comments, maybe.
Well, I would like to thank Eve and Pierre-Luc and my supervisor Luc, who worked closely with me on this project, and also the SOCIJ, which is the Société Québécoise d'Information Juridique here in Quebec City, who provided us with the data set and the task, actually. So we are closely working with them, and hopefully this tool is going to help a lot of Canadian or Quebec citizens in order to, well, our main goal is to provide a layer of access to the judicial system. So hopefully this is going to be used by the government, because we really believe that it's going to be useful for not only the lawyers, but also people that are facing the judicial system.